Hi, I'm Anna Marie Cox, and my hubris is my downfall.
Whoa, would not have seen that coming, Anna. Hi, I'm Daniel Dresner. Vast herds of humans. Can you imagine, Anna?
I can imagine, Dan. I can. As I said before, I've been to South by Southwest. Welcome to Space the Nation, where we look at science fiction through the lens of
medieval scholasticism
and cargo cult science. Today we'll be talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is available at movie theaters, where they have popcorn and soda and other people sometimes. In the next few weeks, we'll be talking about Mad Max Fury Road and Furiosa, a Mad Max story?
Saga.
A Mad Max saga.
Yeah.
We're doing related movies for a little while, right? That's the idea. We're doing like blockbusters and crossovers between them.
We're doing Hot Sci-Fi Summer, and as part of Hot Sci-Fi Summer, one of the other things we're going to be doing is like the crossover films, so think Star Trek Generations or X-Men Days of Future Past, or maybe the original Avengers.
These are not like sequel. That's of something that I was thinking about, Dan. How is this not like sequel stuff? How is this like...
The way I think about it is that what all these movies have in common is that they are taking elements of a larger franchise and finally putting actors or characters that haven't appeared together and putting them together. So Star Trek Generations took characters from the original series and Star Trek Next Generation, put them together.
Okay.
X-Men Days of Future Past took the X-Men First Class actors and the original X-Men actors, put them together. And the Avengers sort of speaks for itself.
Oh, yes, the Avengers assembled.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I understand happened with the Avengers. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Dan is full of good ideas, but if you have any that are better than Dan's, please feel free to let us know about them. And the best way to let us know about them, you can skeet at us. We're on Blue Sky. There are smoke signals and hiring an airplane to do a banner over one or both of our houses. But the absolute best way to get a message to us is actually to become a patron. And then you can say something on our Discord, which is one of the best reasons to become a patron. And if you're interested in becoming a patron, you would go to patreon.com/spacethenation. And Dan, what are the other benefits of becoming a patron besides the Discord, which we love so much?
You also get early access to podcasts. You get access to our semi-monthly AUAs. There could be swag. It's
been in theoretical liminal space for a long time. It's in some universe. Wait, there is a universe in which swag exists.
Yes, the planet of the swag. Yes. The most obvious benefit, however, is that if you become a patron, you can listen to these episodes without any ads.
Bad ads, Dan. Bad ads. I know that was not this movie, but I still feel like that's an appropriate thing to say.
Can patrons and ads live together? I don't know, Anna. I don't.
Well, patrons and ads don't have to live together. That's the thing.
Yes, that's correct. That's the key thing. Yes.
Yeah. Separatism. It's patron ad separatism. All right. So we want you to become patrons because that is the best way to stick it to capitalism and to pay labor directly. Dan, how have you been?
I've been good. Teaching's over. Trying to finish up some writing stuff. Trying to actually do some more ambitious writing stuff. And by the time this comes out, I believe it will be commencement at Tufts, and that will be good because that will be done. Gonna have to wear the Harry Potter robes and all that. But
any exciting things planned for commencement?
Not by me, but I suspect there might be others.
Yep. Did you hear that?
I did indeed hear that. What is going on at the Planet of the Cats, Anna?
There was a little sibling tiff. I think there might be a neighborhood cat in the backyard because Molly has the look of someone plotting to kill someone else. Yeah.
Did Molly get the cat gun to fire?
I have no other explanation for it. I think Molly's looking out the window like she wishes she had a gun. And what happened was Bram went over, interrupted her lethal gaze. And so he got a little tap back there. But, and that's how I'm doing. We'll do that. We'll say that that's how I'm doing. I am tolerating the existence of Molly much as she tolerates my existence, because she's wreaked some havoc in my life. If people download the video of this, they will see that it looks a little different than usual because I no longer have my laptop monitor because Molly decided I wasn't paying enough attention to her. And she bit the edge of it and fried up the screen. I have since discovered this is one of the most common reasons people's laptops are damaged and they take them back to Apple, is cat bites. So, good thing you're a dog person. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
All right. Why are we talking about Kingdom of Planet of the Apes, Dan?
We are segueing into hot sci-fi summer, Anna, and this is one of those sci-fi franchises that has, honestly defying all logic, managed to maintain some artistic and commercial chops. I mean, there is no denying there's some weird-ass stuff with the Planet of the Apes franchise, but it's also been a commercial, success in both versions of it. And there's been some interesting artistic accomplishments.
I like how your entire justification, it has this tone to it.
Yeah, no, because
upward.
This is the problem with all the Planet of the Apes.
Question.
I guess the way I would put it is that even the worst Planet of the Apes films have something entertaining in them, and even the best Planet of the Apes films have moments of silliness where you're really questioning what's going on.
Okay, and it is still MAPE. That is the other reason that
that's the obvious thing. It's late April, but it's still MAPE. This will be the last of MAPE, though. So we'll,
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
That gets to the obvious question of, will this podcast ruin it for you? Anna, what would you say?
I don't think so. I mean, there are plot twists, but I think that the pleasures of this movie lie largely within going to see a movie.
Any movie, in other words.
Any movie, going to see, I would say going to see a big dumb movie on a hot summer day. And we had our first 90-degree days. I mean, it's not 100 degrees down here yet, but we had our first 90-degree days. And that special kind of dizziness that comes when you leave a dark movie theater and walk into a bright day. And it's actually kind of a cool feel, like you've been like, oh, I've been away. I
had that experience watching it as well. It wasn't quite hot, but I saw it in a matinee, walked out and was like, oh, it's bright out. I would, it kind of plays with your conventions, with your perspective a little bit. But and
it's kind of a cool feeling, I think. And so I enjoyed that part of this. I also enjoyed the bigness and dumbness of it.
It's both of those, yes.
And I don't think the plot spoilers are I mean, if you want to see it with its mild twists.
I'm going to argue that, I do think you might want to see it. If you care at all about the plot, you probably want to see it before you listen to this. And the reason I say that is that there are plot twists that when you learn about them the first time might actually be surprising. But the moment you start thinking about them afterwards, it's going to be annoying. And if you know them going in, I don't know if the movie is going to be as pleasant of an experience.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Speaking of plot developments, we should get to the story behind the story. Anna, there is no denying that the skillful integration of CGI and live actors was a huge reason for the success of the earlier films, particularly the sort of most recent trilogy. How did this new group of filmmakers plan on getting to even greater artistic heights with the POTA franchise?
Wet apes, Dan. They decided to get their apes wet.
Okay. Sure.
So,
yeah.
They really went for it. Put their apes in water. That's what they did. This is a quote from Eric Winquist, who is the supervising VFX guy. It was apparent on the page that this is going to be tricky for a number of instances where you've got wet apes.
Yeah.
It sounds like a euphemism for something, doesn't it, Dan?
Yep.
Continues Winquist. You start getting into the need to deal with how the water affects the fur and how the fur affects the water. Thankfully, we just came off a little film called The Way of Water. So we've been able to harness a lot of the experience and the tech that went into that film. And this is from Hollywood Reporter. And the reporter editorializes, buckle up. It's about to make a major splash.
God. I would say, in all fairness, the wet ape CGI is actually quite good. Like, it is. That's the least you can, when we get to our taglines, that would be the tagline I would give.
That is in fact what my plan was to say, was that I think they succeeded in the wet ape department.
Yes. It is good enough, in fact, that I would actually ask, I hope if they ever make another Aquaman film, the wet ape CGI folks should, extend their help to the DC.
Because that we know was very important in the Aquaman franchise. They were very concerned about that and spent a lot of time in post-production trying to get all that hair, that gorgeous hair, Jason Momoa hair, to flow correctly. All right, so various studio ownership shuffles put off the sequels from the first set of sequels, Although it was pretty clear from early on that people wanted to do this, because as you mentioned, they have been commercial successes. Wes Ball, who made the Maze Runner series, was attached in 2019. The script was written in 2020. He and Matt Reeves had previously worked on the Mouse Guard series together, or developing the Mouse Guard series, and that is a graphic novel franchise, which sounds a little bit like the Rats of Nim meets Game of Thrones. It's like a mouse universe with mouse knights and stuff. It's not quite as, I think, probably not as dumb as it sounds. I'm sure there are listeners who have heard it. Anyway, that got delayed.
Because it sounds pretty dumb, just to be clear.
It does sound dumb, but a lot of graphic novels sound dumb and then aren't, So, and also Watership Down and Rats of Nim sound dumb, but they're pretty good. All right, so Ball's pitch to the studios was Apocalypto with apes, which he then came to call Apocalypto. Apocalypto, Dan? Ape?
Yes.
Apocalypto? All right, cool. And there's just some unfortunate tendency towards wordplay in the entire writing, all of the writing about this movie. And then Ball said, and we thought, from the ashes of those previous movies, we're going to grow a new tree to climb. This movie is very much about the beginning of something. Strap in. It's going to be bananas.
No.
Yes.
No.
The script is by Josh Friedman, who basically is a friend of the show at this point. He's one of the writers on Foundation. He also did the Snowpiercer TV series and Lock and Key. And Dan, he wrote Chain Reaction, which we need to do for Wovember. Chain Reaction, Keanu Reeves.
Wait.
Yeah, Wovember, the Keanu Reeves Festival.
Okay, that sounds good.
You didn't know about this? Or we talked about it. We talk about it in the Discord all the time.
I remember it. I couldn't remember. I thought we were also doing Butler-vember is the problem. So, Octavia Butler-vember.
Yeah, but right, we should do Wovember. We really should do.
Yeah, or we could alternate, which would actually be the best way to do it. Octavia Butler one week, but then Keanu the next week, and then back to Butler. It's a.
You know what? Let's see how we're feeling this winter. It's going to be election season. Dan, do you think you want to do Octavia Butler while we're having the election?
Well, there are ways in which it could be appropriate.
You want to do Parable of the Sower, during the election?
A little bit, yeah. Okay. But you're right. Yeah.
And Chain Reaction was filmed on UFC campus. That was actually what you got to meet Jake Gyllenhaal. I got to see cameras in front of apartments on West 57th Street. So
cool.
That's cool.
Which is where I used to live.
Yes. I lived on 53rd.
Wait, and you mean, sorry, just to be clear, this is a minor but crucial point. You mean East 57th.
Oh, I do mean East. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
So Owen Teague plays Noah, and just one last thing about this is my last thing about the Storybrand story. As soon as he was cast, he began to volunteer and study the animals at the Center for Great Apes in Florida. At first, he studied the chimpanzees as a whole to see their typical day and examine how they move. However, he was drawn to a specific chimp whose name is Bentley, and it was Bentley's curious nature that made Teague resonate with him, and it's Bentley that inspired the character of Noah. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but
I confess, when you said Center for Great Apes, I originally heard Center for Grape Apes, which would have been, So
that's another piece of IP that I'm sure we'll see. We'll see the the dark and gritty reboot, Grape Ape. The one thing I said I'd say the last thing, but this is the last thing. So Proximus, according to Ball, and I don't quite understand this, he says with some help, Proximus has rediscovered electricity. So I don't know. This is a plot point that you and I talked about.
We'll get to this, yeah.
He's a Thomas Edison / Elon Musk figure, which I like.
No. Oh no.
And I wouldn't call him a villain, says Ball. I would call him an adversary. He's an interesting character who isn't just a mustache twirling cutout. I disagree. He's not a mustache twirling cutout because he doesn't have one, but he's kind of like.
But it would, if a mustache was on him, it would be entirely appropriate given the character.
It would be twirled. That mustache would be twirled if the ape had a mustache, which now I think would be kind of funny. They should have put a mustache.
All right,
little Hitler.
Let's get to Chekhov's What's It? Oh God, no. Let's get to Chekhov's What's It, Anna. This is the thing that sometimes appears in the first act of a film that winds up being somewhat salient in the third act. Anna, what do you have?
I have Chekhov's Eagle song, which I realized when I wrote it. It's not Hotel California, but that would be kind of funny.
I was going to say. It's Desperado, Anna. I mean, that is the best Eagles song, just objectively. Right. So I have Chekhov's Griffith Observatory, which was actually one of the few sequences where this film showed restraint, is the way I would put it.
Yeah, sure. It's a low bar or a high bar, I guess. I don't know. It got under the high bar of anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. All right, should I get to the plot?
That's what I'm saying. When you guys say go ahead, I'm just plot.
Yeah. All right, let's start with Act 1, Daddy Ape Issues. Many generations after Caesar's death, apes are the dominant species and live in a variety of small clans. Our protagonist is Noah, part of the Eagle clan, which raises those birds from birth and teaches them to gather fish, I guess. It's not entirely clear, but anyway, the important thing is it's bonding day soon, which means that Noah and his friends Anaya and Suna have to climb real high and procure their eagle eggs. They succeed, and you would think this would please Noah's father, Koro, the keeper of birds, who, by the way, Anna, has a kick-ass jacket. Like, I love the feather jacket. That was pretty cool.
I know what to get you for Christmas.
But Koro...
Or, I'm sorry...
But
Hanukkah,
yes.
Or
there we go.
Just your birthday. Avoid the freighted nature of religious holidays. Let's for your birthday.
Sure. The thing is, Cora seems disappointed that Noah is a climber and not a birder. He's also worried about a funny scent on one of Noah's blankets and orders a search party to check out where it was left. Noah spots a scavenger in the clan encampment, and after a brief tussle, his egg is broken. Determined to procure another one before bonding day, he takes a horse and goes to collect another egg. He encounters the search party, dead and or dying, and then sees the raiding party responsible, led by General Silva. The raiders wear masks and armor and possess electric cattle prods. They use Noah's horse to track back to the Eagle clan and then burn it all down. Sylvia attacks Koro, and Noah tries to help, but Silva kills Koro and leaves Noah unconscious, claiming to do so in the name of Caesar. Anna, we were talking before about the CGI, and in some ways any modern Planet of the Apes film rises or falls in the integration of the FX and the characters. I'm curious how you would rate this film. For me, again, much like War for the Planet of the Apes, the close-ups of the apes were great. But anytime you saw them swinging from trees, it felt very CGI. It had that like weird vibe to it. And the other question I have is that another flaw with this film, I guess, is that while Noah is a perfectly fine character, he's no Ceasar.
I agree. I don't know if we should blame Owen Teague. I think he's a quite fine actor. He's been in a couple of Stephen King properties that I really like. He was Harold in the most recent Stand adaptation. I think we can blame Bentley. That's my guess. That he just didn't have a strong enough personality in the ape that he based his character on, perhaps.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. It's underwritten. Yeah.
I also, in general, though, really liked the Eagle Clan stuff. Like, I thought that was that was kind of more interesting than the rest of the movie. I mean, it's not violent or anything, but I was curious about this ape society with the tons and tons of fish that they had. Just like lots of fish, lots and lots of fish. And it did make me wonder if they had
were really doing a lot of work for him, I got to say.
Did they have surplus fish in order to trade for, say, the cloth that they had, since they definitely had cloth. And we know from our last episode that apes can understand capitalism, even not uplifted apes. So surely there'd be some kind of market happening. Anyway, as far as the CGI goes, I did have an issue with it as well. And for me, it was like this weird uncanny valley problem where I don't know quite how to put it. It just seemed spooky to me. Like the way that they were moving didn't quite work.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing you're pointing at. I think it's the close-ups versus like how they're moving in the wild. I also want to say that in my notes, for some reason in this section, I have written emo monkeys, which would make a good band name.
Well, Noah does have that emo feel to him at the outset, because like clearly he's got dad issues. There's no other way to put it. And he's kind of brooding at that point. All right, let's move on to Act 2. It's
mopey
funny.
Ape, mopey teen ape. All right.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to Act 2. It's funny because humans smell bad. Noah awakes alone in the destroyed encampment. After burying his father, he sets out to find his clan, exiting his valley through a tunnel and finding himself in a rather run-down LAX. There he meets Raka, a Maurice-like elder statesman who values library books and provides a quasi-accurate oral history of the apes from Caesar's time. Raka teaches Noah about Caesar's code of morality, ape unity, and mercy. They both spot a human scavenger tracking them. Raka offers her food and a blanket, naming her Nova, because apparently all human women get named Nova by the apes, which, by the way, was actually one of the clever lines and like sort of winking nods to the rest of the franchise. I did like that. That was legitimately funny. Noah senses that she is smarter than the typical humans. The next day, they encounter zebras and more human scavengers who act kind of like the zebras, to be honest. Noah begins to depart in search of his clan when Silva's forces attack the humans, and it sure seems as though they're looking for one Nova in particular. Noah reverses course and rescues Nova. She then stuns Raka and Noah by revealing that A, she can speak, and B, that her real name is May. C, she tells Noah that she actually knows where his clan is, by the coast. Along the way, however, Silva's forces ambush the three of them on a bridge, leading to Noah and May's capture and Raka's death. Anna, I did kind of I didn't like substantively, but I like the plot conceit of how, for the majority of the film, Noah and Raka really did not even think of humans as predators or threats or in any way, significant. They sort of thought of them as scavengers. I think they referred to them at one point as echoes. Which, as a human, I have to admit, was jarring but effective.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to see them as ape-like, right? Like that's the whole fucking conceit of the of the series is that humans are. What if humans weren't the apex predators? On some level, it's amazing that you can get however many 18 movies out of that concept. It kind of
this is the 9th film. Yeah.
It kind of speaks to our guess, our speciesism, that's so fascinating. Oh, what? The idea that we aren't the ones in charge? Tell me more about this wild fictional version of the universe. And I can't promise this is the only time I'm going to say this, Dan.
Yes. But what?
Where did May get her clothes? Like what? I have it written over and over in my notes. Mm-hmm. How did those jeans, it's hard to find a pair of jeans right now that aren't distressed already when you buy them. So what level of distress did her jeans, they must have been brand new, Levi's, still stiff out of the carton in order to look still like jeans and not just tatters 300 years later. Also, her tank top is completely intact for them. I mean,
and form-fitting, I would add.
And form-fitting fits her. Yeah, that's the other thing, Dan. All of her clothes fit her. What? It's hard to buy women's clothes that fit, period. And hers fit like a glove. I guess they're seamstresses. Again, since they have cloth, they might as well have seamstresses. So, again, can't promise that's the only time I'll mention something about that because it's in my notes, throughout the movie. Yeah. I will also say that this is the part of the movie where I began to notice a level of fan service that seems out of proportion with how beloved or not beloved the movies are. The original series is pretty beloved, I guess, but I don't know. It's a lot of fan service for the Ape movies. So I'm going to push back a little bit on this because if you remember, in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the first one, they they use Bright Eyes, which is they evoke that name. I believe one of the zookeepers, says, get your paws off me, you damn dirty ape. They have gone to that well. What is, I think you're right that they actually do revisit some of those tropes. There's the ape scarecrows. Yeah. There's the music when they try to capture the humans that was evocative of the 1968 one. I think the reason for that is that this is the first time in the modern films that they're going to the period where where humans are no longer the apex predator, so they can do that again. But you're right. I mean, I guess my point is they've done this before. It's just that there's different things they're evoking. Oh, I agree. They've done it before. And again, it just seems like over much to me. I think you do fan service, you sprinkle. It's like this. Yeah. It's like a salt. And they've over salted it. The other thing I noticed besides the X-shaped scarecrows and the soundtrack is there's the water bottle scene, which is actually referencing just the last series, not even referencing the original series. There's you liked the water bottle scene. You said Chekhov's water bottle. Yeah. There's a water bottle thing in this one too. It looks like the same water bottle. And then also
the doll, by the way.
Oh, right. There's the doll. And also the chase of the humans is through tall plants, although thank God it's not corn because that would raise my whole other problem about how did you get corn?
Right.
And why aren't you farming it if you anyway. It's just there's just a lot of self-referentiality for I don't know. I guess I guess there are some people who really love this stuff, right? So I'm just
I would put it the way I would put it is that I actually I didn't have a problem with some of it. The one thing where I thought, okay, you're laying it on a little thick is where they kept evoking the soundtrack, actually. Because that's where they, when you would see, the hunt, they had the soundtrack music from the original Planet of the Apes. There's no denying that. And that was a bit much. Mm-hmm. Okay, for those of you who are not patrons, it's time for our ad break. We'll be right back after these messages for the Kurt Vonnegut collection.
Welcome back. A reminder that this program is sponsored by the Sisterhood of the Time-Traveling Pants.
Yeah, there's no denying May's wardrobe is there are many questions.
I could say the time capsule pants, but I liked the time-traveling sort of the rhythm of it,
Yeah. Right. I mean, look, if nothing else, if you're buying the premise, then damn, jeans apparently last a lot longer than I would have expected. All right, let's get to Act 3, Hail Proximus Caesar. Noah and May are taken to an encampment on the shore run by Proximus Caesar. Noah reunites with Suna, Anaya, and his mother, while May is introduced to Trevathan, another speaking human who serves as a lackey to the Ape Kingdom. Proximus is trying to open a human-built vault, to little avail. He reveals his plans to Noah and May, acquire the tech in the human bunker, and evolve more quickly before other humans get the tech. Proximus also warns Noah to not trust May. Noah then decides to sorta trust May, in the hopes of freeing his clan. May reveals that she wants to get into the vault for a book that will allow humans to speak to each other again. Noah persuades Suna and Anaya to come along. They plant gunpowder and explosives around the dam protecting the ocean from the vault, or rather protecting the vault from the ocean. Trevathan interrupts and plans to warn Proximus, but May strangles him to death. May then leads them up a cliff and then down into a ventilation shaft. In the bunker, May finds the weapon caches and the satellite code key, all in working order after, 300 years, because sure. Meanwhile, the apes discover children's toys that make it clear humans used to be the dominant species. Anna, May killing Trevathan was pretty shocking for two reasons. First, Trevathan was played by William H. Macy, and it was just charming to see a really good actor in human form in this film. But second, because there seemed to be so few speaking humans left. And I did like the reaction shot of the apes when they saw this, because they were clearly pretty horrified by it. And in that sense, I guess it does serve as a harbinger for May's subsequent behavior. My point is, it was legit. This way, there's not a lot of real emotional moments in this movie. That was one of them. It was oh, damn, okay, this is serious.
So I went to the bathroom during this scene, and I didn't realize I had missed anything, which I think is a bad sign. Yeah. For me, in my experience of the movie, William H. Macy just disappeared. He just wasn't there anymore, and I didn't want.
He was just. I
didn't wonder about it. I didn't have a question. I didn't think, oh, where is William H. Macy? So. Yeah, that's bad. And then also, as far as surprised because there aren't many humans left, did you mean that it was surprising that May would kill him, or do you mean it was surprising that the apes would be appalled by it? Because
no, I wasn't surprised that the apes were appalled. That actually spoke well to the apes. It was surprising that May killed him. Although I guess, once we find the final plot reveal, it's not that stunning. But I will say this, in the context of watching the movie, I was actually stunned when she killed him. Not knocked him out or just tied him up or anything like that, but actually killed him. That was surprising. I don't know.
I guess you like her performance better or found it more moving than I did. I don't even, although I didn't see the scene, she didn't seem that attached to him. And
let me put it this way.
And
we referenced
if she's really wanting to break into the vault for whatever reason, and she does have a thing about needing to open it for humans to communicate. If he's getting in the way of that,
which you could tell there was something.
Yeah, but if he's getting in the way of that, and also that clearly means that there's some humans somewhere that are, communicating somehow. So I don't know. I mean, I guess you just you're willing to do more work for the movie than me.
I'm not willing to do that much. The way I would put it is, and this goes back to whether or not you should see the movie before listening to the podcast. I think the thing about Freya Allan's character, May, the problem is that in the process of watching the movie, it is kind of intriguing. You don't know where she's coming from. You don't know what her goals are. It's ambiguous. And then the problem is you find out, and there are twists at the end, but that doesn't, it's actually less satisfying. It's a little more frustrating. But I will say that within the context of the film, before I knew the sort of last act reveal, it was a legitimately shocking moment in a film that does not have a lot of legitimately shocking moments.
I wonder if we can put that on William H. Macy or something. Because I didn't care. And then
no, and that's part of it, is that it's William H. Macy. It's oh my God, you're killing the name actor. What are you doing there? But
I also want to say that her squirrely, I need to get a book to help humans communicate was a real tell. That's I did think to myself, what possibly, I didn't guess satellite, whatever thing, but I did think, she's got to be lying on some level.
Right.
There's no way, as a person who as people who know books, there's no, there's nothing, no book that it could be. And this is also the point at the movie where I just started to get mad at how dumb it was.
Yeah, and that's fair, because let's get into Act 4, because then we can talk about all the stupidity.
I gotta say one more thing, Dan. Just one more thing on this section, which is that, so does Proximus do daily attempts to get into the vault?
That's what it seemed like. It seemed pretty ritualistic, which, again, does not speak well to his leadership. Yeah. Although, again, it was that one speech he gives about what a wonderful day. That is an arresting moment. Oh, yeah,
that's a great line, great moment.
It works,
sure.
Yes. It absolutely works. But beyond that, he's actually, like, I think one of the other flaws with the film is that really we're following Noah, and Noah has far more encounters with the General Silva, who, by the way, whose name is never uttered.
I was impressed that you knew what it was.
But, like, no, I mean, that was like, looking at Wikipedia, but like, we don't know his name, but they actually fight a hell of a lot more than you see anything happen with Proximus Caesar. And I thought that was another sort of structural flaw of the film. But let's close up the plot. Let's get to Act 4. The power of the birds compel you. May turns on the power to open the vault doors, only to find Proximus and his army waiting for them, which should not have been shocking in the slightest, given that we knew where the vault doors were. Proximus then threatens to kill Suna, but May takes out a 300-year-old pistol and kills the ape holding her. Proximus then offers Noah his freedom if he points out the other weapons, and also I think offers not to kill Suna. Was that right? This is where I was.
I think he makes Noah make a choice between the two.
Between Suna and May.
That was my read of the situation, although...
That's possibly true, but... It's been a couple days, and frankly, who knows? The point is, unwilling to give the apes more power, May runs and sets off the explosives around the dam, and as a result, seawater floods the bunker. Noah escapes Silva's pursuit and exits through the ventilation shaft. Proximus is waiting, however, and just beats the living shit out of him, demanding that he bend the knee in front of his entire clan. Noah uses his father's songs, however, at just the right moment and summons the eagles to attack Proximus, causing him to fall to his death. Eagle Clan returns home to rebuild. An armed, wary, and slightly better dressed May stops by to say goodbye and quasi-apologize for what she did at the vault. I mean, not really. It wasn't that great of an apology, frankly. She and Noah have a spirited debate about whether humans and apes can coexist. She makes her way to a human satellite base where there are a lot of speaking humans. The satellite key she retrieves allows her group to reactivate communication satellites and successfully make contact with other humans. Meanwhile, Noah takes Suna back to the Griffith Observatory for a hot date. So, how do I put this? There's a couple of questions I have. The first is what May's deal was. I think you're right. I liked Freya Allen's performance a little bit better, or maybe I just like Freya Allen. She looked good in the clothes. There's no denying that. She's a good-looking.
She's a good-looking hairless ape.
She's a good-looking hairless ape, but her backstory is ridiculously vague. And the more you find out about it, the less satisfying it is. I do find her character somewhat interesting in that it's a decidedly human-first worldview. There was almost no difference between Proximus's ape-first worldview and her human-first worldview. They're just sort of mirror images of each other.
Yeah, and on that level, it made me, I had a moment about it that is closer to Rise of Planet of the Apes. As you know, the movies are hard to keep straight. The Gary Oldman movie, I'll just refer to it as forever as the one with Gary Oldman because he's such a delight.
The Gary Oldman ape movie, yes.
Where it's, the argument is kind of made that humans might be worse than apes, right? That or that there is a segment of the human population that is just, that there's violent sections in both species. And that the point of civilization is to diminish the power of the more violent types and to have the less violent folks work together on some level, right? Like live in harmony. And I feel like Freya Allen's performance was that of a segment of people who don't believe that apes and humans can live alongside each other, right? Like I didn't want to root for her. Like I would rather root for Noah, right?
She is the villain in this movie, and you can argue. Yeah, absolutely.
Or if Proximus is the villain, she's also the villain. And on some level, with Trevathan, I think I wrote in my notes, that's not so bad. Like, teaching Roman history to an ape. I mean...
Because as we all know, Anna,
yes.
all male apes Not a day goes by where male apes aren't thinking about.
Well, at least once. I feel like I kind of like Proximus better than May on some. I mean, he was cruel to his fellow apes, I guess, but he was a more striking performance to me. That actor gave a more striking performance, at least.
So it was played by, I think, Kevin Durand, who's a character actor. I think the way I would put it is it's also partially the roles, which is Proximus, whatever you think of him, is like trying to be a leader, whereas, May is a spy. So those are two different, obviously, things. And that's part of the frustrating thing, is that that May has ulterior motives. You don't know what they are. And once you do find out what they are, it just... it's plot hole time.
All right.
Because
that's plot hole time.
It basically points out all of the various flaws in terms of the screenwriting for this film. So, here are a couple ones that came to me. Right. And again, maybe these are, picky, but I don't know. First of all, the ocean water flooding the entire facility. That is not how water works. Like, yes, the thing is like a couple of feet below the ocean level, and it would have flooded the ground floor. It would not have continued to go up. That's not how it works. Second, where are they getting the power or the batteries for the electric cattle prods? Like, that's never explained. It's like the cloth that as you said.
That one I will give a little defense to, or I think they gave a flick of, the pinky at what an explanation would be, which is that when they do a pan around Trevathan's cabin, there are electric cattle prods and some kind of like diagram thing.
Oh, so you think it was Trevathan who figured out
how did Trevathan figure it out?
Right.
If it's 300 years, if it's 300 years in the future. Yeah. Also, how is he reading Roman history?
Right. No. Also, by the way, not even Energizer batteries last that long. Like, again, the power, even if you have like a diagram, you still need the energy. That part I don't get. Which, by the way, leads me to every single thing that we see in that vault working. The moment stuff is turned on, despite 300 years apparently of no use, also no bodies, which raises
I had that
question.
same thought. Like, where are the bodies?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, no bones even?
Yeah, I mean, no, like, you would have expected there to be some people there. May acting the entire time, like you were talking about Trevathan, May is also acting this entire time like she was alive during the breakdown. Like, her knowledge of the history was so perfect that it was just, again, like very distracting. And one last thing, which is they finally turn the satellites on, they start communicating, and people respond back immediately, which raises the obvious question, were folks just waiting by their radios for generations before the satellites started working again? Like, is it like everyone was like, okay, could happen at any moment. You gotta
I'll do one tiny piece of work for the movie, which is that in theory, there could be places where the technology never fully passed away, like especially if there are no ape settlements nearby. You could imagine a group of humans just trying to keep things up as best they can, and maybe even getting an electric dam started like they do.
Sure. Like they do in the Gary Oldman one.
So that maybe in Chicago, they've been in touch with other... See, what is the problem is that Chicago answers as though they haven't heard from anyone else. Like, kind of more interesting is the idea that there are some settlements out there that have been in touch, or that there is like some very loose collection of humans. But then we get into the problem of the simian flu, which is that does it make people less intelligent, or doesn't it? Like...
It does. I mean, by the way, we had this argument when we were talking about War for the Planet of the Apes. This movie settles it very clearly in terms of it makes them less intelligent. I mean, there's that card at the very beginning that says that flat out.
So Trevathan isn't, and neither is May.
Right.
And they imply that it's because the bunker that May is from, like, there's a picture of a person in a hazmat suit, which is like, oh, I guess that they're protecting themselves against simian flu. But then how did Trevathan say
that doesn't... Right, and also, how does May stay smart if she's been outside, not in a hazmat suit? Like, that was the other thing. I could not figure out if she was from that particular place or not. Like, it's... I suspect they're probably going to, like, try to retcon this into the Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, is that what they're calling the next one?
Where it turns out... No, that was the sequel to the Charlton Heston, the original Charlton Heston one, where it turns out, spoiler, it turns out there are humans who are alive on the planet, but they live in an underground missile silo and worship a nuke. It's as weird as it sounds.
And that sounds like Taylor, though. He would get mad all over again, right? Like that, his character.
He does kind of. I mean, yeah, I've never seen it, but like I do know that that's roughly the plot. Also, by the way, I hate to if we're really gonna do this, there's no satellites that are gonna stay in orbit for 300 years.
That too.
Like
right.
They're all gonna.
You're right. Yeah, that too.
That's just a.
Also, how 300 years is the 300 years problem, right? Like, how does Proximus know who Ceasar is, especially if they're in LA? I guess, right?
Right. Well, this is all taking place in California, but yes, like they've been migrating down.
Except Ceasar's group went to Lake Tahoe. So
that's correct. Yes.
How did that happen? And also, did Proximus not call himself Proximus until he met Trevathan? And I'll just say it again: how did he know that he wanted to learn Roman history?
It's just genetic, Anna. All males of dominant species just like they feel this urge to like learn about Roman history.
Okay. Yeah. We can move on. There's more. I imagine if there's anything that we really want to talk about, we'll get to it in Debris Field because we need to get to my burning question for you.
Oh yeah, please,
yeah.
Anna.
Is there IR in this dumb movie?
What a wonderful day that you could ask me such a question, Anna. What a wonderful day that I can explain international relations to you. What a wonderful day that our listeners and our patrons will learn about the international relations and rise up and discover the way the world works.
Okay, that was pretty good. I appreciate that. I'm going to have to make a request for you to do a little more method, IR introductions in the future, I think.
Good. Okay, so, again, the interesting thing about this film, well, not interesting, but like, this film is
being generous there, Dan. Interesting.
Well, the plot dynamic is identical to War for the Planet of the Apes, is the thing. The power struggle is identical between the two, which is in both films, there is a human protagonist and an ape protagonist that basically is convinced that there's an all or nothing view of power. So, in May's case, it's that the apes can't have power, it's got to be the humans. Proximus believes the reverse, which is that it has to be apes and not humans. And by the way, given each side's behavior, they're not necessarily wrong about that. I mean, you would expect May to have learned that like there are apes like Noah, but still, that's annoying. It is also, a politics grounded in identity. The identity is rooted in species versus any other set of normative values, which explains why May doesn't in the end really trust Noah or the other apes, even though they're relatively cooperative with her. And indeed, Raka stressing the value of cooperation between Noah and May, could have offered an alternative pathway. Suppose it was a harbinger of doom that he winds up dying as a result of believing in that. More interesting is, I think, the sort of shifting and subversion of norms over time, which is, the idea that there are norms of, right or wrong or causal beliefs, what have you. One of the interesting things is the way that Caesar's words get shifted and distorted by Proximus over time, that he's saying the same words, but they mean something very, very different. And indeed, even more interesting is the idea or the role that history itself plays in the construction of norms. Again, to some extent, politically, the most interesting conversation in this film takes place between May and Trevathan, where Trevathan tells May, you are attached to a nostalgia for a past that cannot be resurrected. And May's response is, you are essentially acting like a quisling for the apes. And I do think it's actually important for how we view these characters, because if you don't view them that way, May is the villain. May is a complete monster. But the argument for why May does what she does is the belief that, in fact, it is possible to resurrect the civilization that went awry 300 years ago. And history can sort of ground people's preferences there, and the way that history is constructed there. And you can see that, like, it's hard, absent, archives and historians, that it's very easy to like distort history any which way.
Except for Roman history, right? Which is like definitely exactly how people wrote it. From what I understand, there's been no errors whatsoever in the way that people from different eras have transcribed and retold Roman history. Is that correct, Dan?
That's totally sure. Yeah.
We have always correctly interpreted history. Everyone always.
Yep. Never gotten it wrong. Never gotten it wrong.
Well, I have some questions about the IR portion, Dan, or some things that I want to say.
Ahead.
One
Please.
is that I guess I'm kind of a Taylorite on this because there is a part of me that's like, maybe not great to resurrect the history from 300 years, right? Like, and I did have this thought with Trevathan, which is that if you're in Trevathan's position, which you might think that you're one of the only people left who can read and write and know history.
Right, who's a sentient being, as it were.
It's not such a bad... I mean, like I said, it's not such a bad life to be working for Proximus.
Wow, Anna. Okay, I know that if the apes rise up, which side you're...
If you have no idea, if you think you're the only, self-aware, literate human on the planet...
Honestly, the problem is...
And then Proximus treats his slaves badly... Is it doing any... I mean, I don't know. Like, I could be like, I will not work for you as long as you are abusing your fellow species. Or, kill me. Kill me because I refuse to be a party to the way that you're abusing.
But this has to be said. Part of the problem here is that the film is extremely vague on this point. Where the hell does Trevathan come from? Like, we know that May is affiliated, presumably, with, human bases. Trevathan is just, you have no idea what his backstory is, and you have no idea what he knows. You're right that, it raises an interesting question of, should May tell him, look, there are other humans out there. In fact, this is going to be easier than you think it is.
And also, there's a bunch of guns and bombs in the vault that we could use to escape and, maybe even help. And we can do a prison break with the other apes who are being abused. Right?
Except that this is the thing. What's interesting, again,
I like to think, Dan, actually, what my position would be if I was Trevathan and I didn't know that there were other humans out there, I would try to align myself with the slave apes to do an uprising. That is actually... You
would, yes. I'm not sure Trevathan
No, but I'm just trying to put myself in the Trevathan position, because there is a part of me that's if it was an okay society and this is what you've got, being a tutor to an ape is not a bad life. But again, I would say as long as he was a benevolent, monarch, because also the ape ability to... the idea that they're still kind of living as hunter-gatherers or under a cruel monarch is a little weird again, 300 years later. I don't know. It raises some interesting questions, which you might want to ask me about.
Oh, you know what? That's a fair question. So, is there a critique of capitalism in this film?
Well, Dan, I have something in my notes that says Proximus wants to bring back capitalism. And I have no idea what I'm referencing. So that's a bad sign, again, about the movie. But also, I think it's really weird that apes haven't reinvented it yet. Because also, I mean, if you believe free market folks, you don't need to invent capitalism, right? Capitalism comes into being as soon as people have surplus.
It's organic.
As soon as people have surplus shit, right? You start, which is why, I would kind of think that the Eagle Clan, they have so much goddamn fish. They have so much fish. It's actually, you have to agree with me, it's a little weird. Just fish everywhere. And
well, the question I was going to ask you, actually, Anna, was whether or not the eagles are the proletariat in this film. Because I'm not. I mean, I'm actually kind of serious about this. Because the eagles are doing all the work. The apes aren't catching the fish. They're just training the eagles to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it depends on what the working hours are and what the compensation is, and do they have health care and vacation time, right?
Yes.
So I think that's my question about the eagles. But my larger point is that someone somewhere, well, actually, the critique of capitalism here is that the filmmakers clearly, for them, capitalism is invisible, which is the trick capitalism wants to play, right? If you can't think to put capitalism in a movie like this, then you are soaking in it and you don't even realize it, right? Like, the capitalism in this movie is making a movie this dumb and knowing it will make $1 kajillion at the box office, right? I mean, we haven't invoked friend of the pod, Theodore Adorno, in a while.
Adorno, it's been a while since we brought in Adorno. Oh, not you're doing it at the start of Hot Sci-Fi Summer. You're bringing in Adorno. Okay.
This is the time of the year where he would be particularly, if he is in a grave somewhere, we could hook him up to a generator. And we could really get some electric cattle prods.
Power the globe from his...
Quite a few electric cattle prods, that's for sure.
From Adorno's theory.
Yeah, well, I meant just spinning in his grave, just like the current being developed. Yes. So good. Maybe that's where they got the power in the movie. So we can move on. There's another section we do here.
Yep, let's get to the least we can do. We have noticed on occasion that Anna or I, often Anna, damns a movie with faint praise that would be very funny if it were on a movie poster as an endorsement. Anna, do we have any such faint praise for this
I'm just going to do a cleaner version of something I already said, which is, I think they really nailed the wet ape CGI.
I think mine would be...
Really good wet apes. How about that? That's a shorter and punchier. Great wet apes.
That is good, yeah. And you need like 3 exclamation points after that for the quote. Mine would be, this was a 2-hour and 25-minute film that only felt like a 2-hour film.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It really only felt it felt like 2 hours, and that.
Right. No, I mean this sincerely. Yeah. Like, I remember like looking at the time, I was like, oh God, this is going to be a slog. It was a lot of things, but it was not a slog. The movie goes
just
by
for the apes that are wet. Was it a slog? Yes.
Yes, exactly. Oh. All right. Are we ready? It's time for Discordant Notes. This is where we take questions from our patrons in the Discord and answer them in the pod. Today's question comes from Toasty Ken. In the context of the film, which would you rather encounter in the woods, a man or an ape? Anna, what are you going to do?
Gonna go with ape. Man's not going to. An ape is not going to rape me.
I hope not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope people know, like, that's why women answer the question that way. I mean, that's what people realize, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because the chance, like, an ape may kill me, but a man may kill me. Mm-hmm. So that kind of cancels each other out. And then you're going to go with what's the second worst thing that could happen. And one of them has that and one of them doesn't. Yeah. Especially if it's a talking ape and you can reason with them, they might actually be more reasonable than a man. But I understand this is different for men encountering other men in the woods.
Yeah, so as a man, first of all, let's be clear, in this environment I might be worried about rape as well, but
that's true.
I would still say I would still say a man, just because, again, and this is one of the things I thought was effective in the film and disturbing, is that they just make humans so powerless in this film. So, like, my hunch is that if I encountered another human in the woods, they would be acting like a scavenger. They would probably run off immediately. So, like that. In other words, I would view the man as less of a threat, probably.
Yes. Whereas I think, I'm just going to still stick with my answer. I do want to say, just, this is not rape is not about sex, but since we're in that general neighborhood, there was a point in this movie where I thought we might get an ape sex scene. Like an ape sex
and let's be thankful that didn't happen.
I think we might get a love scene between apes in this new trilogy. Because where are you going to go if you make your goal wet apes? Where are you going to go from there, Dan? Mm-hmm. What are you going to do as your next? How do we top wet apes? Well, people can't see this expression that I'm making.
Wait. Okay, it's no. You see, my answer is not what you're thinking. It's apes in space. That's going to be the final version.
Oh, like weightless ape hair.
100th movie. Yes, weightless apes.
Weightless apes. All right, sure. I hope that's what we get. I do, because I don't. No one asked for that. No one asked for an ape love scene. So.
Wait, what's that?
It's stuff flowing through a vault.
Yeah, it's the vault. Yeah, it's the water rising through the vault, which is a violation of the laws of physics. But nonetheless, it's the debris field. This is where we talk about things that we have not brought up previously in this episode. Anna, do you have a fair amount?
I have, not that much. I've said some of it, but like I'll start with they gave the female apes longer hair and subtle breasts. They're just like going in the direction of how can we make clear what the genders are, which is just wild. Like it's just like you don't have to do that, you know.
Well, I think like this way, within the context of the film, no, you don't. I do think they think for the audience you do need to. Now, maybe you shouldn't have to, but like, fine.
Just give them little braids. Make it more, because like...
Right, the braids actually is a nice, inoffensive way of doing it. You don't need to have the breasts. I agree with that. That was just weird. All right, you'll like this one. I just want to say, so this movie does start, like the very first 30 seconds of the film is like immediately after War for the Planet of the Apes. It's them burning Ceasar in a funeral pyre. I just want to say, yay for Karen Konoval, who plays Maurice again for like 10 seconds. Working actress. She manages to be in this film. Yeah. It was nice to see.
I hope she got points on the back end, you know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I will not say multiple times how much the jeans bother me, but it's in my notes every few minutes. How is she wearing jeans? Where did she get those jeans?
Where did she get the tunic at the end?
Nice
like at the
ombre
end,
tunic. Yes, that's a very on trend look for her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I also had some like other sort of tech stuff. Like, what lights are the apes using? Especially like the Eagle Clan. Like it. I guess it's torches, but it looks like...
I assumed it was like lanterns, maybe.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah,
that's true. You said this before, and I agree with you. One of the nice things about this film is the sort of the interactions you frankly have between Noah and Naya and Suna in the very beginning, where they're trying to get the eggs. And there's a quick shot of Naya fainting in the beginning, which was just a nice comedy beat. It was actually legitimately funny, and I was surprised by that. So not. I think you're right that I had they kept the three of them together, that might have actually been a better way of doing it.
Sorry. So again, I have where did her jeans come from? And then I have also she's clearly wearing a bra. Like,
was she? I actually did occasionally try to look and see what was going on.
Understandable.
Okay, I believe you. Yeah.
They're not, they're too big to be that perky without a bra. That is what I will say. She's in her mid-20s probably, right? Like, so.
Yeah.
All right. I also have May is a very good shot for someone who has not fired a gun and fired a gun. Although fired like a 300-year-old gun.
Yeah, that's the better way of thinking about it. With a 300-year-old bullet, I would.
Yeah, or not even knowing where did she load it? Is the gun how did she know how to load it? Although again, they may have had guns. So I have more, but you go.
Let's see. We talked about this a little bit. I actually did like the Planet of the Apes callbacks, because they were different callbacks than what we've seen before. The doll noise was good because that played a pivotal role in the first film. I like the scarecrows. And I even think the tents, by the way, evoked the original Planet of the Apes. That was fine. Yeah. The music might have been like a little too much, but whatever.
Yeah. I have in my notes, ape, no kill ape, bird kill ape.
Human funny, Anna.
Thank you.
Human have good joke there. Yes, that's good.
Right. I just got a couple more things. Maybe I don't know. Go ahead.
I've only got three more, so go
ahead. Who makes their candles? This is another I don't know. I don't know. It's a sign of a bad movie, actually, when I get caught up in this stuff.
That you're asking these questions?
Yeah. Like, if I'm looking at this being like, where did they get that? Where did they get that? Where did they get that?
I think the way to think about it is that you're highlighting, this was the problem with the original Planet of the Apes films. Like, we talked about this in the first Planet of the Apes. The precise technological era that the apes were supposed to be on was never entirely clear. There's it's wildly varying. And with the modern trilogy, that wasn't an issue because it was basically humanity falling And we would, and it was close enough within the end of human civilization that we could believe that anything the apes got, they could have gotten from humans. Now we're back in the same problem where they just haven't answered it. So it's a weakness of the genre or weakness of the franchise. Would be the way to put it. Let's see. It is always nice to see, I believe her name is Dyken Lockman.
Oh, yeah.
In any
Severance.
Film. So, yes. Not only from Severance, she was from Dollhouse before that. Like, friend of the genre.
I was kind of like, how did they get her for like 10 seconds? Like, that's...
Well, this leads to my other thing, which is they've clearly queued this up for sequels. I mean, it is set up for more films. And I assume that she would play a larger role in the subsequent film. And that would, I don't know if they're going to be any good. My hunch is no, based on what we've seen here. They might be entertaining, but like, it's just interesting.
Okay, I have, in my last comment in my notes, where did she get her clothes? And then, why is her face still dirty?
You mean after she takes the shower?
Well, when she comes back to the settlement, she comes back to Eagle Clan, and like her face is still dirty.
Just because she had new clothes didn't mean that she bathed. I
guess. Anyway, this again.
It's not like there's a Sephora lying around.
It's true.
Or, whatever.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, like I guess they do a pretty subtle no makeup on her.
Yeah.
You got anything else, Dan?
I have one last thing, but on the makeup point, I will say this. Like, I remember looking at her thinking, all right, is the makeup obvious? No, it's not actually obvious. And I applaud them for that because, like, there are times where it's just ridiculous.
And now I know how they do that in movies because a Civil War makeup artist is on Instagram and commented on the no makeup look for Kirsten Dunst and Callie Spaney. Yeah. They dye eyelashes rather than use mascara because in close-ups, like mascara is a real tell if you're having like you're trying to do no makeup. And that reminded me that I like to get mine dyed, and so that's what I did last week.
One last thing, given that the crux of this film is about a vault, there was a disappointing non-crossover with Fallout. There was a small part of me that wanted Ella Purnell to come out of the vault when they opened it. And just to see Ella Purnell and like Freya Allen have to battle it out. But like when they kept saying like vault, it was just, I kept thinking about Fallout, which we haven't talked about, which has its charms, but
didn't get excited to finish it. That's a bad sign too. Like I watched the first 3 episodes and I was like, you know what? I don't care what happens. So
I will say this. I actually would leave this way. Freya Allen was fine. Ella Purnell might have been a more interesting casting choice for this.
I agree.
I actually think it would have brought more something.
I agree.
Yeah, she's a good
Fallout is like well cast. It's just
very much
and it's good acting. It's just I wonder if it's one of those things like I would enjoy it more if I loved the video game, but
this is what the impression I get from our patrons in terms of their conversation of it. I have to say I was in the end underwhelmed by it, which is hard because I really am a fan of both Ella Purnell and Walton Goggins.
Yeah, same.
Who are both in it and both quite good in it. So yeah. So maybe the answer is that don't do sci-fi movies or products with vaults. Maybe that's the thing.
All right. So that you mentioned patrons. Please become a patron if you're not already a patron. You get cool stuff. You don't have to listen to ads. You also get to communicate with us more directly. But if you are not a patron and would still like to reach out to us, we are both on the various social medias. Not all of them. In fact, really just a couple of them. You are on Threads, which I find very endearing.
Okay, you can't make fun of me for this, given that you are now back on Twitter. I'm just going to say
I'm barely on it. I only got back on it because my agent wanted me to be on it. So that he can tell people I have 1 million followers, which I'm like, all right.
I think the important social media we're on is the Blue
I
Sky
do like Blue Sky still. I think it is. It's true. It is. There's some things about it that are like the bad old Twitter, and there's some things about it like they're good old Twitter. So
exactly,
but it hasn't reached. It is not the shitification of Twitter yet. So
yes, I am at Dan Dresner. She is at Anna Marie Cox.
I am also on Instagram, not Threads, but Instagram, and that is largely pictures of my pets with some mental health stuff, I guess, and activism type things as well. I have a Substack I haven't done for a couple weeks, but I'm planning on doing. I have a big piece that I'm writing that's about Civil War and writing and Steve Albini and music and kind of the attention economy. Like I wrote it actually in longhand.
Oh my God, really?
And so
you wrote it in longhand?
Yeah, and so like the translation, like I wrote it like almost a week ago, and kind of like getting it into the into the CMS has been a little bit of a journry in part.
Good Lord.
In part because my laptop broke. And then I also did see Civil War for the third time this week.
Yes.
And I would like to report back on that, which is that it holds up. I cried. Spoiler alert. I cried again when Sammy died. Like it
was sad.
It works. And also that Sturgill Simpson song is like so affecting, and his like when he's like looking out the window at the forest fire and that song is playing, and it's just, it's a lot. Yeah. And then, the thing that I really know, like the thing that really hit me harder in this viewing was the deadly professionalism of that last squad, that special forces squad.
Oh, when they go into the yes,
like that is
that
hit me more heavily. I think I don't know where I was, but anyway. So yeah, more thoughts on Civil War. Looking forward to buying a DVD player later this summer.
That sounds good. All right, and next week we'll be doing Mad Max Fury Road, and then after that, the Furiosa Mad Max saga.
Yep. And until next time,
keep this channel open for more.